Excellent. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 11:16 on November 24th, 2025, and I'm Barbara Neal. The meeting's being recorded. The recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. Let's start with our roll call of task force members. If you could please verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name. Dan Batesy.
Here.
Okay, Ron Kumitz.
Here.
Jim Mack.
Here.
Mike Dungis.
Here.
Michael Wright.
Here.
And Paul White just joined us. Morning, Paul.
Good morning. I'm here.
Okay. All right. Also joining us today, of course, is Emily Mullaney from Department of Public Safety as our administrative support, and our project management team, Rick, Dom, and Elizabeth from Televate. And it looks morning. Looks like we have Phil Sisk here this morning from Mission Critical.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, Phil. And Chris Pedotti from Department of Public Safety is joining us as well. Okay. So let's move on to approval of the agenda, which was distributed to task force members by email. It's also available on the webpage. Are there any changes needed to the agenda? All right. Hearing nothing, we'll consider the agenda approved and move on to approval of the minutes. These are the minutes from last week, November 19th, regular meeting number 66. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Move to approve the minutes as written.
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes from November 19th as written, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, hands are up. Everyone says aye, and the minutes are approved. So Dom, let's go right to you for project updates. I do believe you guys were busy over the weekend.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barb, and good morning, all. Of course, it was just a few days that we were last together. To summarize, the working groups for the system planning working groups have largely, essentially completed their work and submitted their recommendations to the task force. At the last meeting, the recommendations from tiers 1, 2, and 3 were accepted by the task force, and the recommendations from the funding and cost sharing working group were reviewed, and we have since made some updates to those, and Televate was directed by the task force to develop a draft of a recommendation summary to be presented to the legislature. It was envisioned to be about 4 pages. I think we're maybe at 5 pages when you include the schedule. So it's essentially the 4-page plus schedule graphic, and that will be reviewed today. That was distributed earlier this morning to all task force members. We acknowledge the help of Barb, Dan, and Paul over the weekend a little bit to refine that, and it's available now for discussion at this meeting. I think that's what I have today, Barb.
Okay, sounds good. Phil, do you have anything to add from Mission Critical's perspective? Oh, it looks like maybe Phil dropped off. All right, we'll move on then to the next item is discussion and of those recommendations, Dom, and your the work you did over the weekend. And then we need to finalize the recommendations as well. So I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you. I can share that so we can work through it. So initially, we provide a text overview, just kind of an introduction. There's section 1. You see there the Public Safety Communication Project Overview and Recommendations. So that's essentially a summary of the requirements via Act 78. And the second paragraph addresses the goals that were established and how the task force recommendations address those goals. And followed by a table. The table identifies strategic objectives and then specific recommendations that were provided by the task force working groups and accepted at the full task force to address those specific goals or specific objectives. I'm sorry. We talk about governance first, and then there's those items identified in the act: reliability, interoperability, sustainability, equity, security, and accessibility. And many of the recommendations, as I mentioned, are put into these categories. And some of them, of course, can apply to various objectives, but the intent was to place that particular recommendation in line with the objective that it most closely addresses. Would you like me to continue an overview of the entire document, or do we want to address section by section?
I think I'd like to make sure that the task force is in agreement on the strategic objectives that we have listed here. As you say, some of the recommendations could go into a couple of different
Yeah, possibly.
strategic
Right.
objectives, but just looking at the categories, is everyone good with what we've chosen or what has been chosen? Governance, reliability, and then if you go to the next page, I think we'll see the rest, right?
Right.
Interoperability, sustainability, equity, security, and accessibility. Is there any input from task force members, good, bad, or otherwise, on those categories and the way it's arranged? Okay.
Hey, Barb, if I may add,
Yep.
we collectively we agreed on these objectives as they are key elements as stated in the act. So we wanted to
Yeah.
align the task force recommendations to key words out of the act, and that's why we settled in on this list here. A slightly different word, it would still, we changed the word and it still achieved the same objective, would be fine. But these words were really taken from the act directly as key strategic objectives.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because it will tie it back to, sort of the work that was assigned and the product we're presenting now. So good. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure everybody was good with it.
Yeah, and just one more thing that we build a bridge between our original task force or working group categories from the report to better align those with the specific act keywords, and that's how we settled on these words versus others.
Okay. And then Dom, what's the next section coming up?
Okay, the next section addresses the alignment of the objectives from Act 78 to the task force recommendations. And here you'll see where we identify the recommendation category that we have developed based on the inputs from the various working groups and specific items, specific called out recommendations and objectives from the act and how they align. For example, with the governance, we address dispatch operational standards, training and staffing, public safety technologies, land mobile radio. Obviously that's a technology as well. We kept that separate. We felt that was a a significant category in itself, so we kept that separate from the technologies. Also, dispatch center facilities and funding. So, and these were the requirements placed on the task force in the act, and how they aligned to those specific categories. And those were aligned to those categories, and then we addressed, and then skipping ahead a little bit, Section 3 addresses the funding that's recommended for each of those categories. So these categories are the same as we find up here.
Yep. Okay, I am fine with this. What do others think? I see Jim nodding his head, and I think Dan was as
Yes.
well.
I
Okay,
see no issue.
okay. All right, so on to the budget piece.
Okay, right. So Section 3 addresses the budget allocations, and here, of course, the goal was to show that the existing remaining funding allocated per Act 78 could be allocated to these specific recommendations to achieve immediate and long-term objectives. And also to show how the current funding can be used to continue the operations, fund the governance, and many of the recommendations initially and through 3 years, in fact. The allocation addresses the governance board operations for 3 years, as well as many of the operations and training objectives also for 3 years. It addresses the CAD recommendation for a 5-year investment. And then it places a significant amount of the funding as well towards updates to land mobile radio. That's one of the primary issues maybe that we need to discuss, the land mobile radio. We allocate, as shown there, a suggestion of $4.5 million to do initial planning and initial deployment of a network, statewide network deployment to improve land mobile radio throughout the state. We recognize that there will be additional funding required to develop a full statewide enhancement to the LMR radio, but we feel that this is the most prudent course to take to finish the planning and initialize the deployment in a number of different areas throughout the state for land mobile radio. So we have developed, as part of the discussion through the Tier 2 working group and ongoing efforts following as well, we have developed a concept for a statewide VHF deployment that would be deployed in various simulcast cells. So essentially common systems within a common dispatch region, a total of 13 of them. They, of course, are different alignment than the law enforcement or VSP simulcast cells being proposed. This is to be in alignment with the dispatch areas for fire and EMS. We have actually put together an initial concept design that would accomplish that objective and look at deploying multiple channels within each cell to support the anticipated traffic. And you may recall the initial MCP report recommended deployment of a single channel throughout the regions. We feel that multiple channels will be necessary in most of the cells, and we've allocated for 2, 3, or 4 channels, depending on the cell and the anticipated traffic. So the design is approximately 50 or so sites where these existing sites are used, and they're used to provide coverage to these 13 simulcast cells. Some of the sites are used to provide coverage to multiple cells to be used for efficiency, and then also provide the various hardware for the various number of channels proposed through each cell. Our best estimate for this type of network is in the $30 to $35 million range to complete the build out. And that's why we recommend an initial investment of this figure to essentially shore up that planning and begin development.
So I know,
Also,
go ahead, Don.
oh,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was also going to touch on the dispatch equity funding strategy. We mentioned that the governance board and many of the operations recommendations will be funded for a full 3 years using the remaining Act 78 funding. And during that time, we would anticipate the governance board develop a specific funding formula for dispatch fees for those entities not currently paying any fees for dispatch. We've discussed in one example of that formula previously, and within those first 3 years, we would anticipate the governing board defining a formula, alerting the dispatch centers of the intent to assess those in later years, and following the initial 3 years that the Act 78 funding would cover, continuing operation of the governing board and those operational improvements can be funded through these assessment of these dispatch fees. And that concept also addresses the sustainability requirement. That's a key objective that's part of the Act 78 requirements. I'll pause now. That's quite a mouthful, quite a lot to consider.
Right. So, and how much do we think when the dispatch fees are fully implemented, how much is that generating?
When
Each
they're
year.
fully implemented to 100%, and we recommend ramping them up in stages,
Yep.
100%, if they are to be fully equitable to what existing contracts are, what other towns are currently paying for dispatch services with existing contracts, we expect those fees to generate around 3 to 3.5 million per year.
Okay. And we're talking about the LMR system that's a $30 to $35 million cost, right? Over what period of time?
Well, that would be the deployment, the cost for deployment. Now, we understand deployment certainly won't happen within an immediate time frame. That would probably occur over a 2 to 3 year period, or possibly more.
And it would be up to this governance group to figure out how to come up with the rest of that 30 million.
That's right.
And what happens if that's not possible and we've committed this 4.5 million to the initial investment? What happens if there is not sustainable funding? What's the end result, I guess, of this $4.5 million investment?
That can be structured, the initial investment can be structured, we would recommend planning for the entire network and then initial deployment. So there could be some initial areas of the state or simulcast cells which have the most immediate need, and those could be deployed first. So there would be a tangible benefit from those initial deployments.
Okay. Okay, that was what I was looking to understand, that at the end of when we've spent all of the 4.5 million, somebody somewhere, hopefully multiple somebodies, are getting
Oh,
a benefit.
that's what we envision, yes.
Okay.
So Barb, also to add to what Dom has shared. Dom, do you mind going to the schedule?
Yeah, I
I
was
know
just
we're
going to
gonna.
go ahead to that. There's a little bit
Yeah,
of intro to the
yeah.
schedule. You want to see the actual graphic?
Well, yes, I think on the schedule, what we, our expectation is that we have some committees that need to be created that would guide these investments. The slammable radio is one, operations training. The governing board and the committees that they create would guide this. So out of that committee work, we're not really expecting to release an RFP for the radio, until the end of the year, end of the operating year next year or the year after. But we really need to engage the statewide community to gain their support for this effort, because they're going to also be contributing their assets and frequencies, if we agree. But out of that, we're going to be able to identify, initial investments that could be made in the event that we, are comfortable about raising the additional funding that's required, which, we hope is not the case, because as I've shared with the board, the task force many times, the radio networks in Vermont are not effective, and they're not meeting their requirements. So if we're they're highly integrated with our dispatch. So they go hand in hand. But we also understand this is a large ticket item, and yeah, Dan, go ahead, sir.
Well, I think there's a couple things to keep in mind here. The first is that this initial investment of 4.5 million is at least in part for planning. So like many of the other elements that we're doing with these recommendations, we are setting up a foundation for future success. By spending this money, we're planning a system, we're doing, we're allowing it to be built upon. The second thing to keep in mind is that another, 3 million of this is going towards leveraging some of the improvements that are going to happen with a $9 million COPS grant towards the improvements, and those would not be available later on. So if we don't do it now, we're not going to be able to do it as efficiently or as cheaply as we can today. And I think we may want to at least note that as we talk about,
Yes.
so we can do these small improvements that will give some measure of outcome, and by doing it now, we are leveraging work that's ongoing, whether we choose to do it or not. That other work is happening. We're just piggybacking on top of that.
That is with a significant cost savings in doing it that way. Yes, I agree, Dan.
So Dan, do you think we should make that statement here, or is that for the larger report? I mean, we could add a bullet easily
I think we
into.
probably ought to at least mention it here. If it is the committee's intent to keep this in there, I think we ought to mention it, because that will be relevant to making this decision about whether we spend this money or not. And then I would also add, it's going to be very difficult for us to say we need $35 million. I don't think we can do that. I think that will create sticker shock across the board and sink the rest of the project. But what I think we should do is to say our system, we are aware that our system needs significant improvements to deliver the kind of capability that our first responders need. And this process builds the foundation for not only a vision for that, but also at least a partial funding mechanism for that. We're not going to cover everything, but we are going to create a system that is indeed at least contributing towards that outcome.
That sounds good to me.
I
Anyone else?
have some wordsmithing as well, but I think I'd rather take that offline. I don't think I need to waste the committee's time. There's just some stuff in the intro to that chart that I wanted to talk about, but again, it's mostly just semantics, not substance.
And I heard probably adding another bullet in here under land mobile radio. We'll work on the specific wording for that.
Okay.
Any further comments or thoughts on the schedule? So you'll see here we have year one.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Don.
Rick.
No,
you
you
want to go to detail?
Yeah. No, you go ahead. You can start it off, and I'll add to it.
Well, it's shown here over a six-year period, as you see. Year one, of course, there's a lot of activity, and that's been expanded to show that. You'll see what we anticipate doing. Obviously, the effort kind of kicks off with approval from the legislature and establishing of the governing board. And then the board would then establish the committees and begin outreach and work on the committees initially for operations, training, cybersecurity, LMR. And we also see certainly one of the quick items that we want to begin is development of the CAD RFP. We recognize that that's one of the most significant changes that we feel coming out of the task force work to develop a multidisciplinary CAD, and we want to get that rolling as soon as possible. So anticipate having a RFP issued and a contract in place within the first year and beginning implementation within that year. Following a year.
I just have a comment on that. So when we say day one Vermont legislature approval, we're talking about when any act becomes effective, right? That's
yes.
Probably July 1, unless they happen to do it, when on passage. It's
And that's assuming the governor signs it.
Right, exactly. So I just wonder if we need to make that more clear.
Yeah. Or just say enactment date or something like that.
Yeah.
Is there a
And also,
possibility?
don't we want to be working on CAD, on a development of the CAD RFP even before the governance entity is formed? And really, we could say, even if it is not formed, the task force could be and ought to be, given the deadlines for the contract with Valcor. We should be working on that RFP development now.
We fully agree with you, Barb. If we could, if this could be positioned as a pilot, whatever it takes in order to not delay until July to get started. We know that this is an essential application that's required now. And so, we weren't considering that the Vermont legislative approval would be as far out as July. and waiting the governor's signing, because that just puts, so many more days between the implementation of a key solution. So whatever it takes to get the CAD RFP in development now would be really beneficial to the community.
I think we could shift things around on this timeline and put something like pre-day one. The task force would, what do we need? We don't need anything from the legislature to do that
I
work.
think, yeah, and that's exactly the key point you're making, Barb. I think so. When you give this to the legislature, they're going to say it must be done by this. That's what they're going to take from this. It doesn't mean that we can't be working on stuff prior to that.
Okay,
The only point that you're going to want to sort of take into consideration is if they say, no, we're taking back all this money and you have no money for a CAD, then
right.
it won't make any sense to do any work on that, prior to that. However, I'm with you, though. I think we should be working on it, but I don't know that we have to worry about it on this.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
see
I
your
mean, I would hope, I mean, there are a bunch of wild cards. You never know what they're going to do, but I would hope fairly early in the session, we would be able to just get a reading on, are they going to be generally supportive of this, or are they going to shut us down right out of the gate?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is we're asking for money they've already spent.
Right.
So all we need
Right.
is authority. We don't really need more money to do that part. So, that's at
Right.
least an optimistic element of it.
All right. Yeah, I guess so. So that all makes sense.
Well, and I'd also
Well-
like to point out that, I mean, this is one of those situations where, the first responder community that is to benefit from this, at some point it becomes time for them to reach out to their legislators and explain why
Yep.
they need this.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
and that their legislators need to take, to take up the drum and try to move this forward.
Yep. And we can add to our list of asks that we want this to be effective upon passage, not wait for the July 1 fiscal year to start. Since the money's already there, theoretically, there's no
Right.
reason to have to wait till July 1st.
That's right.
Right. Good point. All those people that are on the list as members might wish we'd make it wait, but
Mm.
but we'll keep moving forward.
And honestly, being able to move this forward and get something like this accomplished will what is the word my daughter used? Will buy us some street cred with the first responders who are basically sitting there going, this is another state board, another state committee that's not going to accomplish anything. They're going to waste a bunch of time, coffee and donuts, and we're going to get nothing out of it. And as soon as we do have some visible results that they can take to the bank, then all of a sudden they can't use that excuse anymore.
Great.
Right. And that's where the best lobbying comes from, is when the legislators are home on the weekends or during the Thanksgiving Day break, to hear from their local fire chief, their local select board chair, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just summarizing some language in the act out of F.1. If the task force determines that sufficient minimum technical and operational standards have been developed to warrant the funding of one or more pilots, the task force may submit for approval a pilot project to the Joint Fiscal Committee. I think this really could fit into that. I mean, this is not a pilot, but it could be tabled as that. But this is what Ron said. Well, exactly. Street creds are a good thing right now, and this is not just street creds. This is a key improvement that we need, both from the dispatching, for the dispatchers and for the responders that they dispatch to. This is very important. And that's why we made it that's why we came right out of the gate. We wanted this. I mean, we're saying we felt that this would not only excite the community, but this would Yeah, well, I'll just go back to Ron's daughter. Give us street creds.
So building on what Rick just said, if we could convince joint fiscal that some parts of this could be a pilot project, like a statewide CAD with CAD to CAD and the other components of it, if we could somehow convince them that that is a pilot project, they could theoretically authorize money for that tomorrow, and we wouldn't have to wait for any legislation to be passed.
When, yeah. That's a good point.
What does that take? What would the next
What,
move be?
yeah, when did they meet again? Do we know?
Yeah, you would know better about that than I do. I have no idea. This
Yeah,
close
let me
to the
check.
start of the session, they probably don't have anything scheduled this close to the start of the new session, but
Let's see. Well, I can look around to find this. I see they had one on November 13th. And I don't quite know where to look to see if there's any upcoming, so I'll do that after.
might be hesitant to authorize anything with the new session right around the corner.
Right.
I want to
We
make
need
sure I capture things. Do we, I think we talked about potentially changing the wording under day one, then maybe I'm not sure if we agreed on that or not. Do we have any suggested changes?
I think Dan convinced me that we can leave this as is, and
Okay.
the thoughts about like pre-day one, I mean, that work can just happen as we see fit already without,
Okay,
we
great.
don't need anything from them on that. So I think it's fine.
Thank you.
Do we want to sort of re-identify the whole CAD piece as a pilot project, or
I think
do
it
we
could
want?
fall in as a pilot project. It's an expanded capacity at existing regional dispatch centers. That's part of the act. Except we'll be expanding it across all dispatch centers that want to utilize it.
And what's the benefit of that again? I guess I'm not clear why we'd want to do that. I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of difference to me.
The act says that if we have enough operational and technical standards established to warrant a pilot project,
right.
we could get approval for joint fiscal absent.
I don't think we need it though. I mean, all we're really asking for is spending authority on money we've already been given. I don't know that you want to open up.
I think it's broken out in the act where it's up to $2 million for consultants, and then beyond that.
Okay.
Was
That's true.
All right. Well, then, yeah, then I'm behind it. That's fine.
So would we want to identify it as such in this presentation? Or if you go to the chart where we talk about where we want to spend all of the 9 million.
We could do a footnote, a footnote saying that we're seeking something, as that's just a thought there. I mean, if we don't get authority to spend as a pilot, we would still need to go forward with this request. So we could, we could just provide a footnote as an option. That's just one option.
Or we could call them all pilot projects, right?
That's a good one.
Hey, if we simply give the consultants an IOU, we can use their $2 million for the CAD system.
There you go. I'm sure they'll agree. Okay, I'm not quite sure.
Obviously, the board though needs approval, I think, because what you're asking for the board is providing, if you scroll up, Tom, to the governance on the recommendations. So, no, that's for the act. One more table.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, so governance here in operating as independent entity as an authority. This obvious, I think this we can't get around this. The task force could continue managing the funds, but I think governance here requesting, a governance board that I don't see how that can get around legislative
Right.
approval. But the task force does exist, continues to exist.
Until
Under the
replaced.
act. Yeah, till replaced. Exactly.
Okay.
But-
I don't know. I don't know what we need to do with the pilot project piece of this, or if we could just leave this presentation as is and work that into the conversation later on.
I think the latter, personally.
Okay.
For now, I agree.
I think the more
Okay.
complicated you make this, the more difficult it's going to be to get it through.
If we find a faster track in the meantime, great. But in the meantime, the way the graphic was laid out, I think is okay.
Okay. That
I
works for
agree.
me.
Leave the graphic the way it is.
Okay.
So I've got,
What is,
I had go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, Ron. I was going to ask, what is the timeline here? You intend to have this to present or to provide to the legislature by December 1. Is that just done as kind of handing this document over? Is there any type of presentation? Do they ask for verbal input from the task force? What is
Probably all of the above. So my plan.
and when would that happen then?
My
We're
thought
all-
is we would finalize this document by Wednesday, I think is what we had agreed to, or what was proposed. And
Right.
then Dan or I would send this document to the committees that were required to send it to the chairs of those committees. And probably we could come up with some other interested parties like Ruth Hardy and Jim Harrison, who've been part of this conversation for a while. And I say, Dan, we just deliver it to them and say,
Yeah.
here are, the recommendations that we have at this point. We're working to develop a more comprehensive report for the start of the legislative session. Please let us know if you want to discuss.
Yeah. Barb, I think you and I are going to have to share this with the governor's office as well.
Yes. Yeah. And my thought was we would do that today,
Yeah.
after we have a sense, that there's still some fine tuning, but nothing drastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
So-
exactly it. I think there isn't much more than just going to saying, here's your preview that you asked for. And then we give it to the committees of jurisdiction and whatever other interested parties that we have history with.
Yeah. And then I would say we wait for them to come to us for scheduling us in a committee or however they want to do it.
And that's also where we can be in touch with individual members as well as the session begins to start. And, there's a process for that as well.
Did that answer your question, Dom?
Yes, mostly. When does the legislative session start? Is that just at the first of the year?
Yeah, it's like the first Tuesday of January after the holiday.
Okay. And at that point, we want to have a more thorough document, more detailed document with the recommendations and more implementation steps.
I think that's the plan. Yeah. I'm not
Yes.
sure we've discussed all of the content of that report, but
Yeah. And I don't think you necessarily have to have that for the start of the session, as long as it's coming sometime in the month of January, to say, we have this comprehensive, the broader plan is coming.
Okay.
So there's a lot of room on page 5 would it be inappropriate to sort of shift that whole thing down and start the whole timeline thing with recommendations, provided to the legislature, and then perhaps somewhere between there and day one, things like stakeholder outreach, identifying potential members of an RFP committee, and stuff like that to indicate that, that while the legislature is busy pondering this and or enjoying their holidays, that there's something going on to move this whole thing forward.
I think you want to be a little careful, Ron. Again, overcomplicating this process. It doesn't mean that we can't do those things, but I want to keep what we're putting in front of the legislative committee very simple. I guess I need to understand better what you're looking for, but I would just be careful. I'd want to keep it as simple as we can.
Well, I guess where I'm going with this is that there are two sides to my thought process. The first one is that these recommendations will be seen not just by the legislators, but they will be seen by the whole first responder community. And so I just thought that, by putting out there that, the work continues in anticipation of the legislature signing on to our recommendations, that would be a positive thing. And then the flip side of this is that, we've put out a timeline there, but, can we, if we start on day one trying to find, people to be on governance and people to be on the RFP committee, is that really, are we going to have those things going on day 30, or, is this going to end up getting drawn out from the very start because there's work that needs to be done to actually, get the wheel rolling?
I'm not sure I have an opinion on that. I do agree with Dan to keep it simple right now. I wonder if the fact that the work is still ongoing could be demonstrated by the fact that we'll still have task force meetings, scheduled, and activity on the webpage and that kind of thing. And we can get the word to our stakeholders that way.
Yeah. I would also add, Ron, if stakeholder awareness is what you're looking for, I'd rather create a preview for our stakeholders specifically for them and include some language like that in that. So we could write a letter to chiefs or a letter to, first responders saying, here's the recommendations we're putting forth to the legislature. Here's some things that we're doing in the meantime as we prepare for their decisions, that kind of thing. I would almost keep them separate.
I think that's a pretty good strategy. I mean, I think the basic underlying message of that letter is call your legislators and, and give them some encouragement to move this forward.
There is a monthly stakeholder newsletter that's prepared and distributed. I'm not sure how widely read that is. Is can it be captured there, or do we want to do make a special distribution for that particular function?
Well, Barb and I are going to have to be a little careful on this, because a little bit of our capability will depend upon what the governor wants to do with this. Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of different channels that we can leverage here, and it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to one.
I think we should leave this presentation as is and continue the stakeholder outreach strategy conversations separately.
Okay.
And soon, but does that make sense?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so regarding the recommendations and this presentation, do we have consensus that we should move this forward? Are we there? Paul, you look like you're going to say
Barb,
something.
before we go there, can I ask the guys to go back to the previous chart above this one? I just wanted to make, I don't really have any major objections. This right here. I wondered, so I've been thinking a lot about our funding strategy. I did a lot of thinking about it over the weekend, and I don't know that we have fully figured that one out yet. And I'm okay with that. I don't think we have to necessarily have fully figured that one out yet. But I wonder if maybe we take this, the last row of this chart where it says dispatch equity funding strategy, and just make it a little less specific to say that we would like to create an assessment equation or scheme or whatever we're going to call it that that includes a base fee plus add-ons, and again, the language is not correct here, but add-ons that represent the elements of the system that a town is using. Because if we start throwing out like dispatch service fee, population grand list, I think we're getting very granular here when perhaps we're not ready to be granular with this. And all we're doing is sort of giving the people who oppose it a stick to beat us over the head with. When in fact we may be able to make this a little bit less specific and say, look, we're working on a formula. You might point to some of those things, but I'd be careful about making it too specific here. And the only reason I bring this up is I just kind of want to hear what other people have to say about that. If you think I'm crazy, tell me I'm crazy and I'll shut up.
No, I agree. You should probably pull out those particular elements. Keep
I'm
it
happy
more
to help you
generalized.
wordsmith it just to make it a little bit more broad. But that will, I just feel like it's going to capture people's attention. And I'm not sure we want to capture people's attention with it just yet.
Yeah, unless you make it more vague, like, post year 3 assessment will be based on a dispatch fee that could include this
Yes.
dispatch fee model that is still being developed, but could include such components as population, grand list, call volume.
I like that.
That's exactly what I was going to recommend.
Yep. Yeah. And that's 100%. I'm fine with that. I think we may, and again, this is another point I'm willing to concede, but we may want to be careful about using words like agencies that or departments that are not paying fees, because we may get to a place where we're saying we want to charge a base fee to everybody that uses the CAD or everybody that uses some of the systems. I'm not there yet, but I want to leave us room to be creative and innovative here, and not corral us in right out of the jump here.
I think that's fair.
Trying to capture what I heard. Sounded like it had consensus. Maybe we don't want this these capitalized, but based on a dispatch fee that is
Could you just insert the word like dispatch fee structure or dispatch fee formula or dispatch fee
Formula, that's right.
Formula. Maybe I want to say currently being developed or to be developed.
To be developed.
Under development.
Yeah.
They include a base fee. May include certain elements such as.
I think we could probably take this offline. I don't think we need to
Yeah.
Okay.
do it here,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to help you with it. But like again, I think that we want to make it specific enough they understand, but not too specific so that we're tethered.
Right.
Right. Okay.
I'm happy to help you as we go forward, and I would invite others as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the plan was we were going to give everybody until like Wednesday morning to
Okay.
come back with like wordsmithing, I think at this point, rather than major changes to the thing. And then with the goal of getting it to the legislative folks by Wednesday afternoon or Friday morning, perhaps.
I suggest, Dom, changing the develop to underdeveloped under development, just so that we've got another draft here. And then we could, we could send this version out here as a Word, because we sent a PDF this morning. We sent out a Word version. We simplify. If you turn your track changes on, then you could provide tracked edits back. We are happy to get on a call with you, Dan, or with whomever, to go through and line by line, or whatever you want. But if we get out, are you all in agreement that we should get you out a Word version so that you could use track changes to make any proposed substance or grammatical edits?
Sure.
Yes, that makes sense.
I don't think it's going to be very complicated. I think it's more than my brain can do in the moment of looking at a computer. I'll have to sit back with it.
Dan, I'm writing this. Every word, kind of gets chosen very carefully. So, as you very well know, particularly as a historian, I'm sure you have written a lot of reports over your career. For your own pleasure, for school, for work, and these. Yes, you need to
Words
take
matter.
some time. Yeah, you need to think about it in a quiet environment. So, yeah.
Okay, so one thing that we will need to be very careful about is that we are not CCing each other in our responses, because that becomes a public meeting. So all responses should go directly to Rick and Dom and Elizabeth. And then, so we don't need to have another meeting to do this. I think we can agree that that there's consensus around the general format of this, and that we're going to work on wordsmithing, and a final document will be circulated on Wednesday. Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Okay. Then I think, unless there's anything further on this topic, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is public comment. So we have, let's see, looks like 3 members of the public right now. Senator Renner, do you have anything you'd like to add today?
Hi, good morning. I tuned in late. The financing is always fraught, of course. I went to touch that third rail when I was in the Senate and proposed that we actually use at the time it was an 18-year-old law to tap the rights of way for rent from all the utilities. I don't know if you've considered that, but it's already on the book, so it wouldn't be adding a fee. It would just be turning on the spigot. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do remember that discussion as well. So maybe that will come out in the conversations. Chris Pedotti?
I'm all set. Thank you, Barb.
Okay. And let's see, I said there were 3 members of the public, but I think I was counting Phil Sisk in that mix. And so Phil, I'll go to you. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I appreciate the opportunity to listen to that discussion today. It's a very important topic. I have a few notes I made. I'll send those to you
Okay.
as well. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. All right. I think I covered everyone for public comment. Is there any new business for today? All right. So the next item is to confirm our next meeting date. We are currently on the books for next Wednesday, which would be December 3rd. I think we should hold that meeting, make sure things got moved to where they needed to be moved to, and see if there's been any reaction at all, and then we can map our course forward. I'm not sure that we necessarily have to have weekly meetings moving forward, and it might be nice to take a breather through the holidays. So, but anyway, we can decide all that next week if everyone's in agreement that we keep December 3rd on the books.
Yeah, it's easier to cancel a meeting than to schedule one.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
fine.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, good. Then we'll plan to meet then. And I guess watch for this Word document that's going to come from Dom and Rick, and get your comments back to them as soon as possible, and directly to them. And then we'll have a final document on Wednesday. So, anything else for today? I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving and has the time to enjoy it. Seems like it's been a pretty busy few months. So with that, I think we're ready to adjourn if there's such a motion.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning for today, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
right. Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you, Rick and Dom, for all your hard work
you.
over the weekend
Yeah,
and
especially over the
continuing.
weekend, right?
Our
Yeah,
Thank
pleasure.
you all. Happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thank you.
all
Thanksgiving.
right.
Likewise.
You
Happy
too.
Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you,
Happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving,
Have a good one.
everybody.